Welcome to the Mutual Aid Report. The Mutual Aid Report delves into the concept of mutual aid and unpacks its historical significance and its role in local communities by spotlighting individuals who are making a real difference at the grassroots level in the city of Chicago. Let's elevate the profile of mutual aid, shed light on these community-based initiatives, and motivate others to either join or back existing ventures. Let's get right into it.
WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpin Radio. This is the Mutual Aid Report. My name is Mario Smith. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you're having a good day wherever you happen to be listening to us. And please tell your friends to tune in at lumpinradio.com and lumpin.tv. Today, episode 9. Here we are of the Mutual Aid Report, and we are super happy to have the Honeycomb Project with us today. The Honeycomb Project is a very unique organization in our city when it comes to mutual aid, and that they are a connector for other organizations, a lot of organizations, and we'll get a chance to talk about that today. I am super honored to have Christina Lowenstein with us. She is the executive director of the Honeycomb Project, and also Joy Cho is with us as well, and we are going to talk about everything under the sun that is the Honeycomb Project. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario, for having us.
That was easy to do. So when we talk about what the Honeycomb Project does, there are probably people, I can't imagine anyone, but there are probably people who are like, what is the Honeycomb Project? Can you give me a rundown about what and how all of this began?
Yeah, so the Honeycomb Project is an organization really focused on family volunteering. So what we try to do is really remove all of the barriers for young people to get involved in our community and volunteer together with their families. And so on a regular basis, we work with about 50 different local organizations in communities all across the city of Chicago, addressing important issues like food insecurity, housing, environmental conservation, education, health equity. And really helping young people learn about our city, connect with their community, and discover their voice to really make an impact. So we provide programs to about 5,000 volunteers all throughout the year.
So when you say kids, we're talking about little kids and getting them energized about how this all works, and so that one day, if they so desire, they could carry the mantle of being a provider of service for someone. How young are the kids that are in the program?
Well, that's a great question. So our philosophy, I think, is a little bit different than maybe volunteer programs that other folks are familiar with, or even service learning, because we really believe that we need to come together as a community to serve our community. And so our programs are open to children really of all ages, unless, for some reason there needs to be an age restriction. And so you might see, a baby and a baby born, a 2-year-old, a 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-olds. Actually, about half of the participants in our programs are over the age of 12. But those kids are really role models and leaders for younger kids who participate in our programs. And so, if you can envision like a really dynamic, multi-generational environment where you have, parents, grandparents, and kids of all ages really working side by side together doing this work, I think that's what a Honeycomb experience looks like.
Joy is the program coordinator for the Honeycomb Project. I neglected to mention that earlier. When we talk about the kind of programs that the org does, what are some of the things that folks may recognize, or some of the things that they should know about when we talk about the Honeycomb Project?
Yeah, so we have a variety of programs that also have a really huge piece in emphasizing like the educational part of our programming and how it impacts our partner organizations. I'm actually not the program coordinator, but I am in charge of kind of corresponding with our volunteers and organizing operations and day of any logistics, and kind of interacting with families on a personal level. And our program managers are the one that are putting together these programs and creating the partnerships. But yes, our programs have a huge emphasis on educational materials, and to just like really dig deep on these social issues and understand how they can continue to have these conversations beyond our projects and with their families at like the dinner table or their drive home.
And you're so in essence, you're the volunteer wrangler.
Yes, the engagement coordinator. So
Yes.
any correspondence coming from me.
Yes. And I know how it could be challenging to get things together with volunteers and I have folks decide to volunteer. And we will make sure that people know before the end of the show today that they can absolutely volunteer and it's encouraged. And we've had a number of organizations on over the past couple of years. How do you do that? How do you get that component of it, which is really one of the most important parts of it, to develop and to be a thing and to flourish?
Yeah, for sure. I think right now is a time where a lot of young people are looking to get more involved in civic engagement. And we also have this program called Honeycomb Leadership Corps, where we're allowing high school students to come together with their parents and help us lead and support our monthly projects. And in terms of recruiting volunteers, we have a variety of ways to publicize our programming. And right now we also have an initiative called the Community Captains Program. So we're basically inviting the most engaged families from the Honeycomb Network to spread the word for us and kind of deepen our impact in these communities that we haven't really tapped into yet. And in terms of just building that relationship with our volunteers, I think our Hive, how we call the families, really appreciate that there are so many components to each project, and having that multi-generational piece, as Christina was mentioning, really helps create this very unique Honeycomb experience.
By the way, folks, if you are so inclined and you would like to follow along, although this isn't story time and there won't be a ding after each page to turn, you can go to the honeycombproject.org, the honeycomb, C-O-M-B, project.org, and all the information about volunteering and the things that they do and the impact that they have on the city that we're going to talk about today is on the site. My understanding, based on the folks that I've talked to, we should just get to it, about orgs right now and the challenges that are being faced, Christina. How should a person, let me put this another way. I don't think everybody really understands the impact of these changes and the withdrawing of funds and things has on organizations. Hopefully this hasn't happened and won't happen to your org. But what is there a place now where organizations are making contingency plans in case things like this happen? How are you able to still operate in the face of some of these challenges? And what is there, if there is one, what is the plan, if you could tell us, to combat these things? And I guess the sub-question to that is, have you been in conversations with other organizations recently about what is going on right now?
Yeah. I mean, it is a topic that we're talking about every single day. I think, Honeycomb is in a unique situation in that we regularly partner with over 50 different organizations across the city, right? So we are on the ground. We are a small but mighty organization. We're a team of 7 people. And really these programs that we develop are first and foremost fulfilling real needs for the organizations we serve. So whether that is, preparing meals at shelters, we probably work with, 6 different organizations doing that kind of work, to preparing, collecting basic needs, like things like diapers and clothing and sorting clothing donations, things like that for those organizational partners. And so we are with them. We know, what they need, how many volunteers, what, shipments are coming in for what kinds of materials. And it has been, really alarming, honestly, to see how quickly these organizations are in desperate need of more resources, more support. And so they're coming to us and saying, hey, is there any way that you can double down and pick up another monthly meal shift? Or we just got our allocation of, 40,000 diapers that we were getting monthly, cut. Is there any way Honeycomb families can step up and help do a diaper drive for us? So we are, have these incredible relationships with folks that, sometimes are, 5, 10 years long with these organizational partners. And in this moment, we're doing our best to really hear what needs they have and think about how we can really, mobilize our dynamic community to step up, whether it's with their time or, resources to support in any way they can.
So in essence, and if I'm playing this out wrong, then and please forgive me and correct me. As things may circle worse and things may trend worse for families who are out here in our city, and the organizations that they could go to for help aren't really able to operate at the same clip that they used to. That's the part where the rubber meets the road in terms of who's helping who now. and that's where the org needs the help too, to be able to continue to provide the service that government agencies won't provide anymore, or again, during this potentially 4-year hiatus from doing what you should be doing. That's got to be something that keeps an executive director and their board up at night. How do we manage all of this stuff? I can only imagine, and based on the conversations we talked about before we went on the air, the folks that we've all been talking to, just how heavy this is at this moment, and why it is important for volunteerism, and it is important to really be supportive of these organizations that are trying to do this work. And the Honeycomb Project, literally the first line is we put kids at the forefront of social change. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about creating an organization that networks with other organizations, and you're talking about the social change piece. There's a mega challenge in that. And I'm not anticipating that you won't be able to do it, but how do you maintain this even keel that you have when we have so much that is on the line?
Because the stakes are so high, right? I mean, I think, Honeycomb's mission is twofold, right? So we want to provide a real value to the organizations we work for. So both in the immediate, right? So that might be meals, that might be resources, that might be volunteer time. But really, it's also about helping young people and their families connect with those organizations, understanding their missions, and then going on and telling their friends and neighbors, right? Hosting supply drives at their schools, donating money to those organizations, being real advocates for those groups. But then the second part of our mission is really to help young people feel engaged in our community. And so when you think about what's happening in the world, right, there's that piece. Like, what does it feel like to be a young person growing up in this world? When things like civil liberties are in jeopardy, our freedoms are, things like environmental conservation and all of that, right, weighs so heavily on the shoulders of young people. I think now more than ever. And so, how do we help them feel optimistic about the future? How do we help them see that they can be a part of affecting change when the world's problems feel overwhelming? And so, I think. What keeps me up at night, but also keeps me going, is that we need to be accountable to young people in our country to help them see that there is a future that they can help envision for themselves, and they can be a part of creating that future. And, maybe that starts with volunteerism, right? Because they don't have financial resources. They're incredibly limited, right? They're really alienated from the civic landscape. And so if we can help begin that journey for them of finding how being involved is important and how they can make change, that I think is critically important, and especially now.
Will there be, in this city, will there be a time you think that the question becomes, how did we do this? How did we manage to continue to do this in light of all of the things that have been going on? Because as I know the little about you that I do know, which is not a little at all, you sit at those tables with those folks, and you have sat at the table with those folks. Short of asking you, do you think we can do it? Do you think we can do it?
Here's what I would say. I think that nonprofits are incredibly resourceful with what they have. I mean, that is just that's how we operate, right? That's just like the model. And so, when I think about how we operated during COVID and, how organizations needed to pivot, needed to, expand the work that they do to meet the needs of their communities, to, discover new ideas. And Honeycomb was also in that mix, right? Like discovering new ways of engaging our community at a deeper level to affect more people. All of those things came out of those challenges. And so, what I'm seeing is, yes, of course, there are like challenges around funding and like a huge surge in demand for a lot of the organizations we work with. But I think, right now we're in the weeds and it's daunting, but I'm hopeful that out of this, comes, some light and some collaboration and some new ideas that really opens doors to new pathways.
One of the things about the Honeycomb Project that I really, really like is how long you've been at it and the fact that you've had so many people positively affected by the work that you do, whether it's through the network that you help to keep in line or just through the project, the Honeycomb Project itself. That's one of the joys of, I would imagine, any good organization, when you can say this is the impact that we have had on our people, on our community, and on this city. Talk a little bit about this decade of doing good that you all are on this wonderful run, and how you facilitate this good around the city.
Honestly, I think that is one of the things that just inspires me more than anything, is to see that, we have families who got involved with their children when the kids were 7, 8 years old. And now these kids are, full on heading off to college, and they are, now mentoring younger people within our organization. And honestly, over the past year, we've had more than a dozen kids receive national awards for their service with Honeycomb, whether it was the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, the National Point of Light Award, the Governor's Service Award. I mean, it is a long list, Posse scholarships. I mean, and it's because these kids, like, they're not looking for service credit hours. They are truly committed to doing this work. It's just that they have been alienated. They didn't have the opportunities without Honeycomb. And what's been exciting for me is that when I have kids, to think about any kid being involved in something for 10 years is pretty unusual. And so to watch these kids grow up with us and grow as leaders and, join our Honeycomb Leadership Corps, as Joy mentioned, and then mentor younger people, right? Like, I can't think of anything more inspiring than to really look at those kids and, like, we need to support them in that work that they're doing. Like, we're here in service to them more than anybody else. And so I think that's just been really beautiful to see them flourish because we've just opened the door for them.
Because Chicago is such a diverse city, we talk about the 77 communities in Chicago, and the news only acknowledges like 6 of them, but there's 77 different places that people could live in our city. And Chicago is incredibly diverse, as we all know. You can just ride around town and you can see it. Some places far more diverse than others, of course. How do you connect the dots, Joy, in a city like Chicago with the orgs and families and Honeycomb?
Yeah, I think for now our network of partners, kind of through the past 10 years and more, have been spread out across the city, and we're definitely still looking forward to creating new partnerships. But I think one thing, as Christina was mentioning earlier, is just to listen to where the needs are, and that's how we tap into these more diverse communities where maybe more resources are needed and more volunteers are needed. And we also look to our current network of volunteers and see what they're thinking and what they also want to support. And that's kind of where the Community Captain Initiative was created, because there seems to be such a huge need of supporting these diverse communities that we haven't fully tapped into or want to expand our reach into. And I think our current programming is diverse in itself, but there's always more that we could be doing. And I think a lot of our partners also just really rely on our support, as Christina mentioned, and they also give us a lot of information on like where we can help. And I think in general right now there's just this really great sense of collaboration and connection, like mutual aid among different nonprofits. So that's where Honeycomb comes in and supports.
Yeah. Go on.
And I was just going to say, I think that's one thing that Honeycomb families love, is this opportunity to really connect with our community at large, right? And so I think it's so easy to get stuck in these, 77 neighborhoods, right? And you go to your school or you kind of navigate your neighborhood and that's where you live. But really, like, our city is not going to thrive unless we're all taking care of each other. And I think that there is this yearning for families to get out of their, whether it's their faith community or their school community or their neighborhood, and really connect with other families from across our city who share those values. And so, when you come out to a Honeycomb Project, you will meet families from all across the city, right? Kids of all ages. Last year, we had over 90% of Chicago zip codes represented at our programs.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's because families want to do this work. And so, you go out to a program and you meet people, and, that's part of it, right? Is that you get to be a part of a greater community committed to building a better city. And it's not just about how you are immediately affected in your little bubble, but it is about let's make our whole city thrive together.
You said 90% of Chicago's zip code. That is a lot of human beings.
That is Joy in doing all the data crunching. She can back me up on this.
Wow. That's incredible. You don't hear that often. Not 90% in a town like Chicago. That's humongous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
the whole team.
That's teamwork.
For
Ultimately, that's teamwork. Talk about the partners that are with Honeycomb Project.
Yeah, well, we have, as Christina mentioned, over 50 partners at the moment, and we're
57 is what you told me.
Yes, 57
All
exactly. And we're still constantly looking for new ones. And right now, we just got a few more partnerships with EcoShip for one, Treehouse, Humane Society, and with building these partnerships, we create new programs with them. So, for example, the EcoShip partnership, we now have donation drives for packaging materials where they collect them and distribute them to small business owners and kind of help support different businesses throughout Chicago. And where Honeycomb comes in is also providing that educational piece I was mentioning earlier and explaining why this work is crucial and how these volunteers, young and family alike, can bring that beyond just the project itself and maybe taking it to their school or their companies and things like that beyond just at Honeycomb.
I'm still on 95% of Chicago's zip codes. That's crazy.
90.
90. Well, see, now
Getting
we're getting to 95. When we do, we'll bring you back when you get 95. So that's also another interesting way for folks to look at this. With every partnership, it may be not everyone, but with most of the partnerships, you create a new program based on what that partner can provide. And that just expands this bubble even bigger. So if I were to ask you, in the time we have remaining before we go to break, if I were to say to you, I'm one person, or me, my family, we get involved, how many potential programs are there for us to get involved with?
Well, I'll let him take it.
Yeah, we have average around 30 projects a month, and any family is welcome to sign up for any project of their interest. So we have so many different issue areas that we tackle with each project, but it really is just first come, first serve, and whatever that issue speaks to you, any family can sign up for that. And one thing to note, though, we've been honestly really popular in the Chicago area, so registration has been difficult.
Good.
So it opens on the 15th of each month at 9 a.m. So if families want to grab those spots, you got to really keep that in the calendar to snatch a spot.
That must be a rewarding is not the word I'm looking for, but that must be pretty satisfying to know that your work is not for naught, that it's actually doing the thing that you set out to do those many years ago, and to see it growing and moving and shifting. And again, in this time, it's still a thing. That's got to be pretty satisfying, I would imagine.
Definitely.
And I think especially that community building piece. I mean, that's what you see over a decade is just the closeness that these families share committed to this mission, and, that they've become friends and that they have told their, school communities and their faith-based communities, and just people are coming out together to do this work. And I think that because of the way we structure our programs, it really is about that collective impact. It's not just one family alone, but it's together we can do this, and we can do ambitious things, right? Because we're collaborating.
And to go through the partnership thing one more time, this isn't just, hey, I'm Joe and I want to be your partner in this endeavor. You guys really plan this out and think this out so that it will work. How is that strategic planning when it comes to partnerships? How does that come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so I'll just, flex for a minute.
Please do. Yeah, we say words, flex. Yes.
But about 60% of Honeycomb partners we've worked with for over 5 years. So that's before COVID. And over 30 of the partners that we work with have been with us for, longer than that. And really for us, it is about developing lasting, meaningful partnerships that are ongoing. And so with most of these partners, we work with them month after month. Like they can rely on us to bring the volunteers, bring the resources. In terms of the program development, a lot of the folks we work with don't engage young people in volunteerism because they don't have the capacity or resources or ideas or, it is incredibly challenging, right? The organizations we work with are have their own challenges. They want to engage young people, but how do they do it, right? And so we have a team of program managers and Joy who really work to develop these programs. And our program managers are both former CPS educators, so they bring that lens of experiential education and like Montessori principles to the Honeycomb experience so that we can not only get the job done, but that we can create really meaningful projects that have a site-specific curriculum intended to really help young people together with their families learn about these issues through hands-on experiences and have a really meaningful way to give back to our community. And so there is a tremendous amount, like kudos to our programs team, honestly, tremendous amount of work that goes into creating these programs. They are not one and done. They are deep and robust and long-lasting.
I find it fascinating that you guys are a network for organizations, and we're going to talk about that in our second half of the show. And I also, at some point, I'm going to want you to literally walk me through the process of getting connected with you, both as volunteer and I'll, although I don't have one sort of family, and how a family approaches you guys and how that gets done. Quickly, though, right before we go to break, you said that there are events every weekend for Honeycomb. What kind of events are we talking about?
Every type of event. So they typically last from 1 to 2 hours. They can be meal service projects or arts and crafts. We do like no-sew blankets for lorries. We have shelter services for like pet projects and environmental projects where we're working at nature preserves, removing like mulch and having kids work with saws and fire, which we typically...
Joy, you're going to get me in trouble.
Nice.
I know.
Oh, you can never say anything bad about, saws.
Hey, the kids do unpredictable things, and they actually excel at it. And we're really happy to be providing those opportunities for them. So, yeah, we have a huge variety of projects every weekend.
And I always describe it, too, as like, part volunteer project, right? We want to do real meaningful work for the organizations we serve. Part field trip. So, when Joy is talking about the saws and the, right? We're really putting kids to work in meaningful ways. And so they're out there seeing, learning new skills, right? Like, so whether it's cooking or nature stewardship projects, that kind of stuff. And then part party. Like, we want kids to start associating giving back to their community is something that brings them joy. And so together, those things, I think, are the essence of a Honeycomb experience. Sounds
like a good time.
Well, you're invited.
Yes, you invited me. I know. I just, the 16 Lives of Mario Smith. But yes, I will take you up on your invitation. When we come back in our second half of the program, we're going to talk more about the Honeycomb Project, of course. We're going to talk about the impact that they have had and really get into some of those numbers and give you an opportunity to once again peruse that website. It's thehoneycombproject.org, O-R-G, the Honeycomb, C-O-M-B, project.org. We're with Christina and we're with Joy. Charlie Garcia is our producer today, and we will be back in a moment. Thanks for listening, everybody. Truly appreciate it. This is WLPNLP Chicago, 105.5 FM Lumpin' Radio, and this is the Mutual Aid Report. Welcome back to the Mutual Aid Report. I'm Mario Smith. Today we are sitting with members of the Honeycomb Project, and we are going to continue our conversation, and we are going to start with something that we were chatting about as we were off the air. The impetus for starting this is a very interesting story, and it's congruent with how this show began. Could you please, Christina, talk about how this really all started?
Sure. So for me, this is going back now, almost 15 years ago. When my son was born, he was born with some health issues and ended up at Lurie Children's Hospital for an extended period of time, a couple of months in the ICU. And it was quite honestly like a pretty traumatic experience for our family because we were doing the whole thing when you have a sick baby of, running back and forth to the hospital at all hours. And, the stress and all of that of the whole experience was just incredibly difficult for our family. And one thing that kept me going through that experience, honestly, was the incredible people at the hospital, the nurses, the doctors, the security team, the cleaning staff. I mean, everyone at the hospital was so kind to our family. And, in that moment, these were all strangers who would, put a smile on her face or say something nice about her son or, whatever. And it was those little moments that honestly kept us going during that difficult time. And, our family got through the experience. My son was okay, but it was long. And my husband and I were talking about just how deeply grateful we were and wanting to do something nice for the hospital around the holiday season, which was just a couple months later. And so we were thinking, like, what can we do? Our family is not super wealthy. We didn't have, a ton of money to give the hospital, but we wanted to show the team there how much really their support meant to us. And so we decided to participate in their holiday toy drive with my daughter. And so it was really my husband, if I'm totally honest, who said, Penelope went through this experience with us, like, we should do something with her, so she can see how grateful we are too. And so anyway, we participated in the holiday toy drive that year, and we had my daughter go to Kohl's and pick out all the toys with the list in hand. And she was just turning 3, so little, right? And she was bouncing around the store, picking all these things off the shelf. And I remember thinking, she thinks that she's on like a toy spree, right? Like supermarket sweep for kids, right? And so she was like picking all this stuff out. We went to go, to the cashier, and I thought, oh, this is going to be rough. And the cashier said, wow, you're really buying a lot of toys. And she goes, we're buying them from the hospital. And I was like, gosh, like, does she get it? Like, what, And then we dropped them off at the hospital, and I was fully expecting her to cry. And, like, we handed off these big bags of toys and, like, got in the car, and, like, there were no tears. It was just this, like, lovely experience. And I remember, thinking, like, God, I'm such a good mom.
Right.
Wow, I have this great kid, and I drove away. And honestly, at that time, I really thought this was like a one and done thing. Like, we were just doing the nice thing during the holiday season. Sometimes the holidays are the moment, right, that families do this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
And it was my daughter who taught me that this was not a one-time thing.
Oh, wow.
And it was that every time we drove down Elston Avenue, my daughter would point out the window from the back seat, buckled up in her car seat, and she was like, that's where we bought the toys for the hospital. And then when we would drive past the hospital, she was like, that's where we gave the toys, for Isaac's hospital. And I was like, boy, you were really paying attention to a lot buckled up in the back seat about our world. And then, later that winter, she ended up getting hospitalized for like the flu with dehydration, that whole thing that happens when your kids are little. And we were at the hospital, and she was so sick with this like terrible fever. And a nurse came in and brought her this like stuffed animal. And she was literally like crying, like just terrible, right? And she was like, next time we need to get more snugglies is what we used to call them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, like I need to step it up because clearly my kid is capable. Clearly she cares. And I need to make sure that, like, I am giving her all the opportunity in the world to give back to our community. And I would argue that she can pick better toys for kids in the hospital than I can.
Well, there's that.
And
There's
so
that.
that just sort of, like, opened the door for me to seek out these kinds of opportunities for my own family. And then really just discovered that it was hard for the organizations to do this sort of work and that there were very few opportunities available for kids. And so...
And that's kind of, as I told you, that's how this show was born. Essentially, it was out of the need to make sure that the need was being met, because we know there are a lot of organizations in Chicago that do all this great work, but there's no there is a directory that good old Lumpin' Radio has called the Chicago Mutual Aid Directory. But there's no, it's just not a conversation isn't really being had. And that's where we come in, and we wanted to make sure that we could change it. So, yes, that was a very important part of the origin story and the story of not just the Honeycomb Project, but the work that we're all trying to do these days is to make sure that those needs are absolutely met. We talk about the impact of the Honeycomb Project. If you go on their website, you will see under impact, there's a wonderful thing that rolls up and all these numbers start rolling. But these numbers are now a little bit more than they used to be. There's 57 organizations and over 45,000 volunteers. Let's get into those numbers of the impact that the Honeycomb Project has on the city. Joy, can you walk me through, number-wise, what are we talking about when we talk about impact met along with needs met?
Yeah, I think that's includes a few components. So the first part that we provide are obviously the volunteers, and right now we have over 5,000 participants that volunteer with us each year, and that number is still growing. We're already, I think, over a third way through our new goal of being over 6,000. And, I think our impact also speaks to like the amount of resources that we provide, and a lot of that is quantified through either like the meal drop-offs or the drives that we do. Like recently we had one for our Mother's Day gift drive, and as Christina was mentioning earlier, the diaper drive for St. Sabina, and a lot of those just like different kinds of needs that communities look towards us for, and those kind of come up just based on their need, and our impact really is I think like widespread across Chicago, and every partner has different resources that they are looking for, and yeah, Christina, if you have anything you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think just, in terms of the need versus the number of volunteers, definitely there are some projects. Families love cooking together. So our cooking projects fill very quickly, which is great because we're really committed to serving like healthy, delicious meals that are home cooked at shelters. We have a few chefs on our team who design incredible menus. Joy is included in that. And so when you come to a Honeycomb Project and we're cooking for you, you can rest assured that it is a delicious, healthy meal with lots of fresh food. And, so those sort of projects fill quite quickly. But we have, plenty of room for new families to get involved. And again, quite honestly, given the needs in our community, this is a great time to volunteer with your kids, just because we do have a lot of projects with space available and tremendous need from our partners. Like we have a partner that we provide healthy boxed meals for. So it's a pantry that, gets typical pantry food, right? So like onions and potatoes and canned goods and things like that. They came to Honeycomb and said, hey, listen, we have a huge surge in clients visiting our pantry who don't have access to cooking equipment or can openers or a roof over their heads, right? And so is there any way that Honeycomb can help us address this need in some way? We don't know how. And so we started a program making healthy, non-perishable boxed meals that Honeycomb families are actually preparing at home and then delivering to this site. And we have delivered thousands of meals to this community partner. And I was checking in with them and said, hey, how's it going? Like, do you want us to, And they said, honestly, we're going through 300 meals a day. So there is no shortage of, like come one, come all. Like the more meals you could give us, the better. Because it is, the situation is really critical, honestly, for a lot of the organizations we serve. So, we're always looking for new partners. But honestly, we always need more volunteers to step up and do this work because, the opportunity to make an impact is limitless.
TheHoneycombProject.org. The information is there. It's the front page. It's there. I can't walk you to it. It's there. All of it's there. Among the things that you talk about on the website and the tenets of the organization are things like empathy, the connecting of communities. One of the things, and I would like to talk to those in a moment too before we do the walk up to how this all works as a family. But you talk about screen-free quality time. And man, to get a kid to go, you know what, let me put this down. I'm an adult and I'm having trouble putting it down. I can only imagine a kid who has a limitless supply of things to want to learn about and see on the internet, them taking their phone or their device. I mean, we have all gone to restaurants, and I'm sure somebody is shaking their head outside of this conversation in the studio, and you'll see a kid at a table with their family on an iPad or on a device. What does screen-free quality time mean in relation to the Honeycomb Project?
So that is a great question. I'm so glad you're bringing it up. And I, too, have a phone problem. Put it on the table. I think that, you know what, we all need to be better role models. And I think that's both parents and kids. And I think when you come out to a Honeycomb Project, it is the kind of thing where you don't see anybody with a phone out. And, you know, people are present, and we kind of create an environment that really allows people to connect with each other in real life. We have things like icebreakers and opportunities to really like work and collaborate with each other. And so, no offense, but like phones are not welcome. And so unless somebody's like snapping a quick picture, it really is about being present. And I think what we hear from kids who participate in their programs and why they love it so much is honestly, I think they're longing for more time without their phones and computers. And, you know, and I think they're longing for their parents to pay attention to them and you know, be present. And so I think like we could all do better, and we need to have more spaces that really help facilitate, you know, that sort of presence and belonging.
That's incredible. That is incredible, because to get a kid to say, I don't need to touch my phone, that's, you know, that's almost a fight in some houses. Now, I'm a person that is very interested in what is going on with the Honeycomb Project. And let's say, for the sake of this conversation, my family and I are very interested in what's going on with the Honeycomb Project. Walk me through the process, Joy, if you will, of how that starts and what is the end result of me coming to the Honeycomb Project.
Yeah, I think the process of it all seems a little bit daunting at first, just because we have such a wide range of robust programs, but actually the process itself is pretty easy. So you would just go onto our website, and we have a specific account called MyHive, and families can just go in and create an account with their family. And after doing that, you can select any project that you're interested in. And there's no limit to how many projects you would like to do a month. We obviously welcome any family to join us. And our registration opens at 9 a.m. every the 15th of every month. So if you want to snatch a spot, it's going to be a little bit difficult at the moment, just because spring is coming, summer is coming, and a lot of people are looking to get involved. But yeah, once the account is created, we'll reach out and guide you through any registration problems if any questions arise. But typically the onboarding process is very smooth. And we also, apart from family opportunities, we have adult volunteer opportunities. So adults who are looking for more volunteer opportunities as on their own can join our support team program, and they can reach out to me or contact, you know, the website, and basically they would help support our project leaders who run these monthly projects in facilitating the programming, such as, you know, taking on the icebreaker, helping these programs run smoothly, and really just keeping these families engaged while they are at the project. So these adult volunteers also have the opportunity to just see what a Honeycomb Project looks like, and also actively be involved in at our partner organizations, and just seeing, like, helping facilitate these really wonderful experiences.
And you're not just in one place, you're all over the city. Yes. I was just watching on the website, there's beach cleaning. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's south, like Rainbow Beach or 79th or something like that.
My favorite beach in the city.
Rainbow, yes, yeah, I grew up around
there. My family went to Rainbow Beach quite a bit.
I was way more than, that's a whole nother show. That's my regular show when I talk about
Best
my Rainbow Beach.
Best views of the city are at Rainbow Beach.
Yes, and I think that's universally agreed upon as far as the beaches, which is also the one of the unique things about Chicago, having the lakefront, we have all these beaches up and down the lake where families can go and hang out. I logged it. If I could have gotten compensated for the time I spent at Rainbow Beach. But it looks like you guys are everywhere. You're doing nature preserve stuff. You're in Ravenswood. You're doing the meals. You got seniors that you work with. You talk about growing food. In a calendar year, you guys do a ton of stuff. How many events do you think that is in a year?
Well, so we have about, I think last year we had over 300 projects in communities throughout the city. And I think what's really cool is to see how families participate. Every family is different. So we have some folks who come out, to the same project month after month. Mm-hmm. So that nature preserve, we have families that is their like monthly family activity to go like romp around the woods. We build big bonfires. We, have picnics there. Like it is a whole experience. And we run that in January, February, like the coldest months of the year. You are in the city and you can see deer and you can see owls. And it is awesome, right? But then we have other families where every month they rotate where, each kid will get to pick a project. And so they get to try all different things. What I think is particularly cool is, we are working with many partners in these issue areas. And so when I think about like food insecurity, we're working with, everyone from pantries to shelters to community gardens. And so, giving families this opportunity to really explore our city and meet different partners, both big and small, and see how they're addressing similar systemic issues and, watch how their operations might be different, the clients they serve might be different. They're all addressing a complex problem that spans our city. And so I think there's something to be said about being able to explore these issues with multiple partners in communities across the city that gives kids a broader and deeper perspective on the challenges that we face and gives them a lot of different ideas for solutions and helps them connect with incredible people and incredible organizations that, they might not have known about, right? And, again, thinking about that sort of like the world's problems are kind of daunting for children, I think that gives them a lens that helps them see that there are solutions and there are incredible people right here, right now that are working to address those challenges.
And working on their behalf to make those things right.
Yeah.
You guys have a pet mutual aid center that you work with?
We do. It's a very popular project.
I better not say that too loud. I don't want Charlie to hop over the table and go, pet mutual aid, because he has a lovely dog. And that's one of my favorite dogs, too. A pet mutual aid center, you're stocking the Little Free Library. We do stuff with Love Fridge, and actually have had Love Fridge on our show. You volunteered, Lurie. I'm just saying, folks who happen to be listening, there is no shortage of things that you and your family could do. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to say the name of the website again. It is thehoneycombproject.org. And the time that we have remaining, and thank you both for being on today. Truly, truly appreciate it. Is there any message or anything that I may have missed that you guys would like to impart upon the people who live here in our wonderful city?
I would just say something that we've learned over the years through our work is, like, first and foremost, we need to stop underestimating kids. Thinking back to my family's first experience when my daughter was 3 and taught me a big lesson.
Yeah.
Like, we need to start listening to them and paving the way so that they can be involved. And, we are so critical of young people about so many different things. And the truth of the matter is, like, we work with them every day. And I can tell you unequivocally that they are incredible and they are passionate about making a difference. And, like, we had some kids in our office a couple of weeks ago, and they were teens who participate with us a ton. And one was like, oh, can I get my service credit hour thing signed? And the other kid was like, wait, we can get service credit hours for that? And, like, these kids are authentically interested in doing this work, and we've got to give them the tools and resources and opportunities to do it. Yeah. Because they're not tomorrow's change makers or, like, leaders of the future. They're leaders now, but we need to give them the opportunity. And the other thing I would say is that, like, Honeycomb is all about community and collaboration. And, that's bringing different partners together to work with each other. That's, connecting these issues. But it's also like we could not do any of this work successfully if we didn't have a critical mass. And it's because we're bringing people of different ages, different skills, different backgrounds, different expertise. Like, our community is rich and diverse. And the only reason why we can do this work is because we're coming together in unison to achieve these things. And so, Joy does a meal program at our shelters, and he leads all these families in these cooking projects, some who've never cooked before. And somehow, I don't know how you do it, like, you're preparing incredibly delicious meals. And and it's because folks are sharing their skills together, right? We're teaching each other, we're learning as we go. And I think that piece, the community piece and the togetherness is really key.
Yeah, kind of just like jumping off of that, I think it's also an opportunity for parents to really see what their kids are capable of. A lot of the kids at projects, since we make this slaw where they have to use a mandolin, and seeing that as a parent, it's terrifying. We have these big knives where, kids have never touched a knife before, and these parents are like, no, like, I will do it for you, but we kind of give them the space and teach them how to correctly use it, and as we give them the right tools and guidance, they're able to achieve something that their parents didn't even think they would ever be able to do. And a lot of these kids come back to these projects because they're like, oh my gosh, I got to, make a slaw. I had to cut potatoes for the first time, and, foster that kind of passion for cooking and also just doing that direct service with our community. So having both pieces of like empowering the youth through our programming and serving our communities at the same time is really what Honeycomb is about.
And I imagine that goes back home with the kids too, because then they become better partners in their house and start to get the idea of, okay, let me help mom and dad out, or let me help mom out, or let me help myself out because I know how to do this now. And that can only lead to better relationships at home, and that's super cool, especially in a moment again like this in a city like this where it's incumbent upon everybody that's in it to stand up a little bit taller these days. It's as daunting as we want it to, as we may think it is. Sometimes it's really simple. It's just there are things that need to be done. There's an opportunity to do those things. Let's do it. Let's see what happens when we do it, instead of trying to figure out the alternative if we don't, because we already know what happens when you don't do anything. Nothing happens. Things only happen when you do something. And we have a really unique situation here in the greatest city, period, on earth, to be the forefront of doing great things, particularly with young people. As I told you when we initially talked, I'm lucky to serve on the board of Intonation Music, and I get to see them do their thing, and I see what it's like when they accomplish anything. Not a big, huge thing, anything. And they're like, yeah, I did that. And then when they become proficient at it, it's like, oh, I can do this, and I can teach someone else how to do it. So I believe the strength of organizations like the Honeycomb Project is just what you both said. It's bringing it home to these young folks, listening to them, really listening to them. There's value in their voice, and we don't put the proper currency in them like we should. Because can you imagine if we did listen to them and it's not something outrageous, that it is something super meaningful, and most times it is, how that the currency of their voice, that's a big deal to me. I think it's a big deal to you guys as well. Christina Lowenstein, Joy Cho, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate you guys being here. And I know this was kind of last minute, but you both showed up, and this has been a wonderful experience for us on the Mutual Aid Report. And we really appreciate you both being here today.
Oh, we're big fans of the show, and thank you. What a great conversation. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you're interested, please visit the website, thehoneycombproject.org. Don't forget to visit if you can. On behalf of Ariane Luna, Charlie did it, Stephanie Manriquez and Charlie Garcia, I'm Mario Smith. We will see you in 2 weeks on the next edition of the Mutual Aid Report. Until then, be well, be safe, have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you soon. This is WLPNLP Chicago, 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio, and this is the Mutual Aid Report.